get really involved in mission?
Well, you see, when I was teaching in the school, one of the groups, we had two groups, the Melba Means group and the Ruth Casey Circle group. Both those ladies started out in church here. And Melba Means was the daughter of Charles and Martha Means. And both those ladies went to Africa, and so we named our circles. They did. It was going on before I came. They named the circles Melba Means and Ruth Casey. The Melba Means was at night to take in the working people who could not come during the daytime. The other one was daytime. And they not only met down at the basement of the church, but they also met at Tressie Staley's home, in the basement of their home. I used to think that was neat, really neat.
We're going to Oregon City Baptist originally, and when did you first start going there?
Oh my.
Oh, it would be
After we bought the farm. What year did we buy that farm? What when that would that have been? In
1945.
You went down to the farm in 1945?
Yeah.
And you went to Oregon City Baptist
I went to Oregon.
for how long?
Probably.
5 years maybe?
No, it wasn't that long.
Oh,
Maybe
really?
a year and a half,
Oh, okay.
2 years at the most,
That we went there
to the Oregon City Church.
And then did you come
And then we came here.
in like 46?
We were invited, the Staley's invited us to come.
Oh, they did, okay.
The Walt Staley's.
And you came when it was still up in the City Hall there?
No, they already had their building here.
Oh, did they have the building
Yes,
already?
they already
Okay.
had their building and in place. They were working on the building
Okay.
at that
They-
time.
Would have been brand new then.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they were
building a new addition.
working on the back part.
New addition.
The church had been set in, and they were building the education unit or the on the back, and that's when we came.
Okay.
You-
And I know that you helped with that project, didn't you?
Oh,
we
yeah,
did.
yeah.
We did.
Yeah, and you told me about the woman that drove the bulldozer.
Uh,
That was one of the highlights.
yeah, it was.
There was quite a few people working on it.
Were there?
Oh, yes.
You worked a lot in 1959 on remodeling the sanctuary.
Yes.
It says in the some of the records I have that you were singled out for all your hard work on that project. So do you remember, can you tell me what you did on that project?
Well, I did some of the outside work here.
On the ground.
Actually, I hauled dirt in from the farm, topsoil, to put out here so that we could trying to grow some
That's
Grass.
before this was here.
Right.
That would be-
Before the street came over quite
Right.
close,
Yeah.
Before we-
and then they was cleaning out the back. There was a lot of brush back there and oak trees and stuff, and we did quite a lot of work on that.
But that was back when they put the addition on the side?
Yeah,
Okay. And that was in 1947.
yeah.
So soon after you
That was
came
about
here, you
that
worked
time.
on that.
Right.
But then you also worked on the sanctuary quite a few years later when you put the paneling on and moved the balcony back and
Oh,
moved
yeah.
the baptistry
Oh,
up.
yeah,
You
yeah.
were
That
doing
was a big project. That was
Yeah.
when Pastor Wood was here.
Yeah, we,
When Pastor Wood was here, that was done. You were the chairman of the deacons at that time, weren't you? When Pastor Woods was here?
it's mostly just the rough work. I wasn't involved in the carpenter work.
Oh, but I know you had a lot of meetings with Pastor Woody in regard to the remodeling of the
Yeah,
sanctuary and all that went on.
So you were the chairman of the deacons. I heard you were also chairman of the trustees.
Yeah,
I was chairman of the trustees.
Were you both the chairman of both deacons and trustees?
Not at the same time.
Right, but over the course of the.
Yeah,
Okay.
Not at the same time.
What were they? What did they do? What was the difference between a deacon and a trustee?
just the hat. We put on, put on a different hat.
The deacons staked and the trustees took care of the money, didn't they?
Yeah, but yeah, the trustees.
That's about the way it
Yeah,
went.
yeah.
But they were quite a going little church at the time we came here.
Uh-huh.
They really were. They had pretty good congregation and they were doing things in a small way as they could, you know.
You didn't want to go on they're going to have a hike and it got rained out or something. What was that?
Oh, yes. One of the leaders had this great idea to take us all on a hike up to Ramona Falls. And so we had to wear a full backpack. And that morning when I got up, and I'd practiced with my backpack, but I could hardly walk around the house with it. And I wasn't going to pack light because I needed so many things. So anyway, that morning when I got up, we were rained out, and I was so happy I didn't have to pack that backpack. That was probably my most memorable time. That and sleeping in a sleeping bag downstairs and having Lucille Fife come along and tell me to be quiet because the leaders were more noisy than the kids.
Okay, your most
The most memorable moment.
Most embarrassing moment.
The most embarrassing moment. I don't have a most embarrassing moment.
most memorable.
The most memorable moment was still when we were in Glen Ellen. It wasn't that spiritual. It was when one of the pastors came by, noticed that we had a tent trailer that had hard sides. And he said that he was glad the sides of it were hard because the knife wouldn't go through it because the Hells Angels were in town. Now, I didn't sleep very well that night.
Well, let me give you a little background. I've got some background that goes way back.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I grew up, or I didn't grow up, I spent my first, probably 10 or 12 years in the old Oregon City Baptist Church. And, well, we moved to Gladstone in 1936, and I went to the Oregon City Baptist Church from that point on for several years. And during that period, the Oregon City Baptist Church was located down on Main Street in Oregon City. And they had a building program going on. They'd bought property up on the hill and they were going to build a new church there. And I was just a little kid. I don't know what all of the problems were, but it had something to do with this building project that they were involved in. And it caused a big split in the church. And that split, the people that left with the pastor, and they came over here and they started the West Lynn Baptist Church in the City Hall, which is now where the police station is in West Lynn here. And we continued on in the Oregon City Baptist Church, but I did attend here occasionally after the church was built because we lived right down the bottom of the hill here. And I went to high school across the street here and would walk up the hill every day. And it was during my high school period of time that this church was built. I graduated from high school. Well, I guess it was actually before. I graduated in '46. And I guess it was after that, but it seemed like I remember some activity, some digging and so forth going on around here. And because of our close proximity to the church, I did attend here quite often. And I remember David Hood, who was a man from Ireland, a very eloquent speaker. And I remember him, and I remember Pastor Ellick, and who came after Ellick?
Anderson after Alec? Henderson?
Henderson, yes. And it was when John Henderson was here. I got out of the service in '59. I got out of the service in '52, and we went to the Milwaukee Baptist Church for a while, and then we came over here in around late '50s, early '60s, and I've been here ever since. The way we came here was when the split came in the denomination. The conservatives pulled out of the American Baptists or Northern Baptists, whatever they were, and the Oregon City Church stayed where we were members. They stayed with the denomination, and so we were conservative, so we came over here. We even had Sunday school rooms in the little, what do you call a little room that's off of the sanctuary on each side? We even had even had a Sunday school class in one of those for a while. So we had Sunday school was big then. Gib Carlson would, and I guess some other people too. We had a Sunday school bus, so we'd run around the town here and pick up the kids and bring them in. My wife and I then went up to the Sunset Fire Hall and started a little Sunday school up there, which we ran for, I don't know, a couple of years, I guess. And it just became too much of a challenge for us. We had many of the people women from the church particularly came up and helped us. But we decided to give that up and bus the kids down here.
How many kids did you have in that Sunday school?
We didn't have very many. We had maybe 15 or 20 maybe.
And you had to tear down and set up?
Yeah. It was a chore. Every Saturday night they'd have some kind of a party up at the fire hall, and I'd have to get up early Sunday morning and go up and sweep the place out and carry the beer bottles out and get it set up for Sunday school. It became quite a challenge. But there was some interesting times with those boys. I wasn't with them on one of their trips, and they stopped in town and did a little shopping, and one of the kids got picked up for shoplifting. And we went one time when we was up at Little Lava Lake. That's way up on the Century Drive out of Bend. One of the kids disappeared. He just decided he'd had enough and he was going home, and he took off and was walking down to Bend so he could get home, I guess. Well, he had little interesting things like that happen. But it was a good time.
Anybody in particular you remember?
Well, Rick Sollers came through the Boys Brigade program, and we had the Ross boys in there. And I hate to name names because I probably forget some of them.
We came in 1973, and we was here before the summer was out. I went forward and accepted the Lord here. And my husband was outside for 2 weeks. Nobody said anything. They parked like this, you know. And my sister came out and said, "Oh, you ought to come in. Dr. Brooker is teaching a Sunday school class, and you might enjoy that." And so he did.
We originally came from a Methodist church in Lake Oswego. And the pastor there was worldly. Nobody even carried a Bible. He just preached on worldly things. And all of a sudden he said, "Well, for the summer," he says, "I'm going to have reruns in all my sermons I had before." So Barbara said, "I'm not going to stay here." So her sister was going here, so that's how we came here. Her sister invited her to come over and try this church out. But she went forward, and then she was gone up to her mother's, and I was by myself and was in there, and then they gave the invitation after the sermon, and something just told me to get up and go. So I walked up there. I didn't hardly know anybody. And then Ed Campbell come up there, because I was all by myself because Barbara was gone. So that's how he come up there and stood by me when I went, professed to bring the Lord into my life and join the church. You know, we had a big, back in 73, 74, like that, we had a big high school group. And they had singers, we had 40, 50, 60 of them. And the youth pastor had them, they sing, they go all over and sing. And the kids, the high school kids, we had a big group. They drew outside their friends in here, so they really had an outreach.
Daryl Troub's
Daryl Troub's sons
was the head of it.
Well, no, really the other fellow was that, had the 2 or 3 girls, you know. Ken Davis. He got it started there. They all had dressed, the girls were all in the same kind of dresses. The boys dressed with ties and that when they went around.
So if you're going to give a piece of advice to the people in church who are going to be here 10 years from now, what piece of advice would you give?
Get involved. Yeah. Get in there, work, get into a group, get to know the people, and you get that much joy out of it. Make new friends.
Some sort of that.
Well, we disturbed all the neighbors around. We worked until midnight, usually. And Charlie Means, Bob Wilson, and Walt Staley are the main ones that backed us up. And I got here they had already poured the foundation. And I got here when they started the superstructure. And I remember Sam Nixon coming up and say, "Hey, you guys can knock it off anytime." And that was about midnight usually. See, it was all bulldozed out, and this building was up, and they cut in sections and brought up from Camp Adair. Mm-hmm. When we did some remodeling here, we could see where they cut the...
Oh, could you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they didn't disassemble all the boards, they cut in sections, huh?
Yeah, it was sections.
Where are the sections? Tell us?
This part here was cut into several sections. I remember that.
Were they like cross sections?
Just vertical pieces of wall they cut up.
Yeah, vertical pieces of wall, I think. Now you can't. There again, I don't know. I don't know who else.
Yeah, you couldn't keep the whole.
Yeah, because they had some sort of siding on each side.
I was wondering how they did that.
But I always wondered about the lamb beams. You know. In those days.
Yeah, what did they do with those? Now those are, I don't know if they put a covering on those at
Yeah,
one point.
they've been covered,
So they were probably rougher looking, I would imagine, just painted maybe originally.
They were pretty well knocked up, you know.
Oh, really?
After they used them in the service down there at Camp Adair, and they they transported it up there. I don't know how they did it. I thought it were 8-foot sections, but you couldn't prove it by me. Well, I think as Baptists go, you know, they change pastors about every 4 or 5 years, so they.
So I'd like to get a new one?
Yeah, that's what, you know, almost like school administrators, they just move them around. But no, they've had, I think our best times when we had our camps, youth camps. Those are highlights to me. Silver Creek Falls, working up there, and you know, having work crews. And Craftsmen for Christ was another thing that drew some of us. After we retired, we could go out and do things like that.
You said Silver Creek Falls. Was there a camp up there?
Oh yes, we used to go up there every year, and the men's roundup. The men's went up there before the roundup ever went to the other place. We'd rent that out for the year, almost always, and we had the great chef Gino was supposed to do beef for us and have it ready for supper. And he started the fire, but he didn't put any rocks in the bottom of the pit. And the beef It was raw yet at 5 o'clock, and they had to put it in the oven and cook it for us. That was one of the things that we learned. It was this whole wing here, and we divided everything up into classrooms, so we had enough for every class of, well, there were about 10-foot square or 10 by 12 rooms, and we planned on Sunday school rooms for everything. The big section up here on the third floor was they took the partition out of that and made it a large room later on, not right away. But Mitch Anderson donated all the materials for the wiring, he and Julia. And then we went and I worked with Mitch on Saturdays. He was a former state inspector for electrical work. And he wouldn't let you put anything in unless just right there. It had to be, all the bins had to be just right for him. And of course, then we drew the lines, wire through, but everything's in conduit in this area here. We used to have our prayer meetings in that room there. This was in the 50s and 60s. And we had this guy, like Keller was a German. And he'd pray in German. And he'd go on and on and on, but you couldn't understand him. But he really felt it, you know what I mean? He really got into it. Then we had another German fellow who used to comb his hair from the back to the front. And he was a careless, I can't think of his name right now.
So you're sure he was praying in German and not praying in tongues?
No, he played in German. Every once in a while someone would say, "Yay, man," and I thought, well, they understood it anyway.
That's right, I remember you were, how many times did you redo the Constitution?
Oh, I don't know. Every time a pastor came in and had some different ideas, they'd want to do it.
So every 4 or 5 years then.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seemed to be that's the way things were anyway, that people have their own ideas. One thing that, Scott wouldn't have been allowed to be a pastor here, according to the old Constitution.
Because?
You were on staff.
Oh, that's right, I had to be cleared off, didn't I?
Right. That's why, what's his name went to, he's in Milwaukee now, Doug. Mm-hmm. That's why Doug couldn't stay.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Do you think the church would have had Doug if he...
I think they would have had Doug.
But we had a constitutional provision that said he couldn't.
Right. I think that was a mistake to start with, because Doug was a good man.
Okay.